Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcast, your go-to source for insights and inspiration from the best minds of the AEC industry. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and today we're celebrating the future of design and engineering with some of the industry's brightest up-and-coming professionals. Every year, Zweig Group recognizes the next generation of AEC leaders with the Rising Stars Award, honoring those who are making a real impact in their firms and the industry at large. Today, we're sitting down with two recent honorees, Mike Makris and Duncan Robertson, to hear about their journeys, the lessons they've learned, and what being a rising star truly means. Joining me in this conversation is my colleague, Luke Carothers from Zweig Group, and together we're going to dive deep into career growth, leadership, and how firms can better support emerging talent. Whether you're an aspiring rising star yourself or a firm leader looking to elevate the next generation, this episode is for you. So let's jump in. All right. So listen, I want to welcome Duncan and Mike to the podcast again. Luke, it's so good to have you join me on this particular episode. I really, really appreciate you. I want to get started and just kind of have this conversation about rising stars. And one of the things for sure that I always like to talk about is that, I think Zweig Group over the years, and I've been involved with the company since '97, has been very innovative in acknowledging and celebrating this industry. And one of the ways that they've celebrated it is through this whole Rising Stars award and the category. It's a new one. It's not something that we've had for a long time. And honestly, it's an award that has been a long time coming, and I'm so glad that it's here. And so I think, today's conversation is going to be special just for the simple fact that we get to hear from both Mike and Duncan and learn more about their background and experience. And so why don't we start with that? Can each of you share a little bit about your background and how you got into the AEC industry? And so just through alphabetizing, Mike, I'm going to let you go first, and then Duncan, you can go next.
Well, great. Thank you, Randy, and thank you, Luke. Glad to be here and glad to be part of the conversation that Zweig's been leading in. Really, I love the term elevating the industry because I think the conversations, whether it's employee development, fee billing structures, that marketing strategies that keep our industry on the leading edge, Zweig does a great job facilitating that conversation, and privileged to be welcome to be part of that. So a little bit about me. I started in the AEC industry almost 10 years ago. Right out of college, went to Iowa State for a degree in civil engineering. Go Cyclones! After I had graduated that degree, I was a little uncertain. Where did I want to be in the industry? What did I want to do? Did I want to be one of those people that hit the eject button on engineering with their degree and went into business, or even law? So I took a job here at BHC, a mid-sized civil engineering firm in Kansas City, knowing that Kansas City has a lot of great companies in the AEC space. And I knew if BHC didn't work out, I was in a good metro that would provide plenty of opportunities. So excited, really enjoyed the company and the atmosphere and how they interviewed and welcomed me. So took a job. Here, I'm actually originally from the Chicagoland area, but graduating school from Iowa State, I knew I wanted to go north or south on 35. With some snow that happened this past weekend up north, I'm happy I went south. So got kind of embraced in the industry, kind of struggled to find exactly what I wanted. I want to be the technical guy, a transportation designer. Even a year into my work here at BHC in the AEC industry, I kind of had a career crisis, and I might be a little nerdy because I solved that by signing up to take the LSAT, thinking maybe I want to be a lawyer. So took that out of the blue one day. Decided not to go to law school, didn't score. I gave myself, if I was in the 80th percentile or higher, taking it out of the blue, I'd go to law school, but didn't quite hit that goal. So stayed in the AEC industry, but found the land development space really design is very powerful. It's very technical. How do you manage stormwater, traffic, all those different of elements of engineering we deal with in school. But then you also kind of get negotiated solutions, whether you're taking a project to the community, hearing their feedback. There's sometimes that not in my backyard NIMBYism you have to get through and work with different stakeholders to bring a product and a solution to the community that they appreciate. So found my career working through there. There was even a little bit of the legal component, sifting through zoning code to find different challenges. So really kind of dug in and enjoyed that work. And a couple years through there, had opportunities to work with a variety of different clients and expand my skill set in that space. Work with different markets. To this day, I'm heavily involved in our civic and healthcare type projects with a handful of really good partners here locally and nationally. Did that for several years, started gaining that relationship, becoming the face of BHC with a handful of projects and clients. And that's what kind of really pushed my career to get started. You know, started receiving the raises and the promotions that come, and kind of found myself in that classic tough point that most 7 to 12-year engineers do, professionals do. You're kind of embattled in the day-to-day. Wrote about that in my Zweig letter article, but kind of have worked through that and was really fortunate to have some great leadership here at BHC that supported me as I was getting my feet under me as a new manager, as a new project leader, and really helped set me up to have a good first decade in this industry.
Man, I love that. That is a great story, and I really appreciate you kind of sharing, the background, because I've talked to a lot of design professionals, young design professionals that
Mhm.
have either one way or the other kind of thought about the whole concept of maybe going to law school or maybe
Yep.
finding another career. And one of the challenges that this industry faces is that we don't have enough design professionals matriculating through university,
Yep.
right? And so it's like, I think people need to hear that there are options out there. But, the other thing too, Mike, is that specifically about this industry, there's a
Hmm.
lot that you don't know when you graduate from school that
Hmm.
doesn't become
Yep.
readily available until you've had a few years under your belt. Am I
Hmm.
right about that?
Oh, 100%. One of the you know, things we kind of talk about, when we're interviewing interns, everyone kind of tells us, I want to be a project manager. Day one, I want to come out of school and manage projects. And we're like, whoa, 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 time out. Like, let's get your feet underneath you. Let's teach you the fundamentals of our industry, of our business. You learned the engineering principles that have been in place for thousands of years, or at least since we built the Hoover Dam 100 years ago. But let's get your base and your feet on the ground in the industry and figure out where in this very wide industry you enjoy, kind of where your passions lie, because there's a lot of different breadth to this industry. And
Yeah,
it takes 5 years to start figuring out, these are the niches I kind of like, this is what I don't like.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, and that is those are great points, and I'm glad you're kind of elaborating on that. Duncan, we didn't forget about you, man. Why don't you just quickly identify yourself and just tell us a little bit of your superhero origin story into the design industry space.
Yeah, well, thank you, Randy and Luke and Mike. Great to reconnect with you as well.
yep.
Yeah, I found the industry probably in a less common path than most do. I'm not a technical person, don't have a technical background, and I've been in the industry coming up on 6 years. And also, like Mike, started right out of college. So I went to the Boise State University, go Broncos here in Idaho, and originally from the state of Washington, and really just knew that Boise was somewhere that I wanted to spend more time after college. And so I just started looking for opportunities out there. I studied communication with a business emphasis. And so I think I knew I was always headed towards the marketing or public relations route in some way, shape, or form, but I didn't really know exactly. I mean, anybody out there that knows communication knows that you can pretty much do any job that requires talking to somebody with that background. And so I didn't really have a straight path heading out of college. And Fortunately enough, I had a relationship with the current CEO at Tamarack Grove Engineering. We're a small structural firm in Idaho working all over the country, and we had the chance to just sit down. I was in my final semester at Boise State and really just wanted to talk to him less about a job, but more to just see what is the business community like here in Boise. I think Mike mentioned it, but similarly to Kansas City, Boise has a great booming construction industry, but also just a really good place to make local connections. And so I knew that the more I could get out there and learn about the landscape of what business was like a few years ago in Boise, the better, at least, perspective I would have. And long story short, I jumped in with Tamarack Grove, really just spearheading their marketing and their online marketing efforts, their social media, their website, their advertising. And ultimately, it ended up being a great fit. I knew nothing about structural engineering. I actually didn't know that there was marketing for structural engineering or really for engineering as a whole. And so I came in with a lot to learn, but a lot of ambition at the same time. It was something that was exciting to me because I've always really appreciated the built environment. I've always had jobs in the past, through growing up and through college that really allowed me to work with my hands. And so I could appreciate that labor aspect, but I just really never knew what there was to the technical side. And so spent about the first year and a half, really just increasing online brand awareness and trying to figure out what this brand was that I was being paid to promote. But then also, I think at the same time, getting buy-in for myself so that I knew that I was talking about something I believed in rather than just talking about, the name of the company on my paycheck. And so I would say that came very quickly. We have both personal values and company values are very much in alignment. I truly do believe in the mission of Tamarack Grove. And so that's helped me over the years. Since I kind of transitioned out of that sole marketing position, I learned what the term business development was. And when I learned that you could make money by going and connecting with people and building authentic relationships in the industry, I was like, man, if somebody would have told me that I could study that in college, I would have done that. And so I truly love business development for the fact that we get to make those authentic connections with people. And so now I currently get to see all of our BD and our marketing efforts at Tamarack Grove and have really had that support to just be able to grow within the position, but also in the industry as well. That was the other thing that I found when I jumped into the AEC industry was there's probably 10,000 people, maybe more, that are doing exactly what I'm doing across the country for our industry. It's specific to the greater construction industry. And I think that was also a new world to me. So being introduced to groups like the Zweig group and to SMPS for just the commonality of marketing out there that I just had no idea about has really helped me feel like I have a home as somebody who's, again, not a technical professional, but somebody who truly does love this industry. And I definitely think even though I could go apply, these kind of tools in the tool belt anywhere, I think I really have found a home in the AEC industry.
Man,
Yeah.
well, we are certainly glad to have you. And Luke, did you want to say something about that?
No, I was gonna say I can appreciate that your path into the AEC industry. Just as Mike was saying, there's a million different niches for technical roles. There's the same thing on the non-technical side, and my background is in English and writing, so nowhere anywhere near technical side of the AEC industry. But I shared that passion for the built environment and working with my hands, and so. I appreciate that path into the AEC industry, and you before I joined, I would have never known, like, this touches every single part of society. It requires every single type of person to get the work done. And so for me, I really appreciate what you were saying there. And yeah, it's just exciting. And I feel like I've made a home in somewhere that 10 years ago, you would have told me that I was a part of AEC, it would have not been part of my mind.
Well, and I think, to your point, it's interesting. I've seen the evolution over the years. I got a few years on you guys and some gray hairs, but the bottom line is that when I got in this industry in 97, it was a much different ball game for design professionals coming out of school. It was kind of like, here, you fill in this gap right here. This is what you do, and only speak when spoken to. And honestly, Duncan, for your edification, in the '90s, marketing professionals, it was just an apparatus within a design firm, right? I mean, it was, if you weren't billable, you didn't have a voice. And like, I can imagine the way that the folks at Tamarack Grove treat you. They treat you with kid gloves, because you are one of the rainmakers of helping to bring business in. You play a vital role in the success of that organization, and you're not like, and unlike how things used to be in the design industry space, they don't look at you as a marketing professional and say, oh, well, Duncan's not really billable, so he's not as important as, say, somebody like Mike, who has an engineering degree, right? And so there is a difference, a fundamental difference, that I think design firms have embraced in terms of looking holistically at the whole organization, and just wanting to hire and bring along individuals that can add value across the board, regardless of their professional services background, if they have one. That makes sense. So anyway, I'm just listening to myself here, because I mean, it's something that I've always felt strongly about. But so listen real quickly. I'd like to know, what, if anything, and this is for both of you, what, if anything, has being recognized as a rising star? I mean, it's a major accomplishment, right? Can you kind of take us back to when you found out you were nominated, and then what was your initial reaction? Mike, I'll let you go first.
I guess, Randy, first I want to kind of comment on, you mentioned the comment about, marketing professionals and others. And that's something, us in our business have been very, thoughtful about enacting. We have to get rid of that thought of people are just overhead. No, they're not. They're critical components to driving this bus forward. And, that is something I think our industry has really embraced well the past few years. I was in the business 20 years ago, but even in the last 10 years, I've seen us be very methodical, and the way our brand has improved has been incredible. So kudos and big round of applause to all the non-technical professionals
Yes.
that make this industry run, because if you left it to a bunch of engineers or even architects, we'd probably make too many problems. We're known to identify problems that don't necessarily need to be identified just because we think they should. So
Well, and before you move forward, I will say, because of, and what it is simply, you're describing the value of a diversity of thought and experiences and backgrounds. And if you are in a monoculture, you don't have that diversity of thought and that diversity of background and experience, which really pays off in the long run. So I wanted to add those 2 cents. But yeah, go ahead and tell us how you felt as after you were found out you were recognized as a rising star.
Yeah, so I, beginning of last year, kind of took a promotion in our department to, be a team leader. Started managing a handful of staff, and really just taken on a whole level of new experience. It's not just technical problems, you're dealing with people. People have a lot more variability than a project. So was kind of in the heat of it, learning to be a manager, a supervisor, manage more projects with clients, and expand my oversight of the company. So really, I'm going to call it an embattled day-to-day view. It just feels like things are bearing in. And then I think it was probably March, right around St. Patrick's Day, same time last year, I got an email from our marketing department, and it said, hey, our firm leadership, Teresa and Kevin, want to nominate you for a Rising Star Award. We need some information from you, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, oh, great. Well, thanks, Teresa and Kevin. That's kind of a pat on the back. Just, appreciate the work you're doing. We want to nominate you. So filled out, gave marketing the stuff they need. Thank God for marketing. They fill out these forms, because engineers, we would do when due, and probably get in a haphazardly created document. So again, plug to those non-technical professionals that make this business run. Fast forward, 2-3 months. I can't remember when awards come out. Maybe it's May or June. Found out I was selected as a rising star, and our firm leadership usually goes to the Elevate conference every year, and they said we want to take our rising stars there. So I, along with a few others in our company, got to go down, along with our founder and a few of our key firm leaders. And you spend 3 days stepping out of the project, stepping out of the day to day, and really focusing on what makes this business run, what makes this industry run, where are our points of improvement. And I think that's when, I really felt an award come full circle, because it wasn't a certificate, a ribbon, a pat on the back. It was really, hey, here's, you know, the knowledge and the areas we need to progress in our business, and seeing the vulnerability of our firm leaders and other leaders in the business, trying to talk through ways, how do we improve? How do we be better? And that humility you kind of see from people also helped me out, being this young, use that word again, embattled mid-career professional, that, yeah, it does feel like everything's, a challenge. You're not hitting this perfection or whatever level of attainment you give for yourself, but everybody's facing that. Look left, look right. People might not advertise it, but you got to go and see, go to a conference where there's some seasoned firm leaders talking about challenges they're facing. And it reiterated that, it's not that I don't know things. It's not that I have a lack of knowledge. It's just I have gaps that I need to fill with some more experience. And that's true if you're 10 years into your career, and talking to people at Zweig, it's true for people 40 years into their career.
Yeah, absolutely. That is well stated for sure. And I would venture to say that when you say mid-career, I don't think you even, I would say quarter career for you, because and I was just speaking to a bunch of folks at an ASCE event recently, American Society of Civil Engineers, for people that don't like acronyms. And I was telling them, I said, design professionals now could literally work 40 to 50 years, right? And you could work well into your 70s. Not saying that you want to, but some people prefer to. And honestly, we're going to probably need more design professionals to work later on in their careers, just because we don't have enough of them, right?
Yep.
And so that's one of the reasons why we have, we want to promote rising stars like you and Duncan and others, and just promote people that are early in their career, because you have to play the long game. It's not, it's not like, oh, I'll be done in 20 years. No, you're 20 years, you're just getting started. And on top of that, you'll be learning things in 20 years that will still make a difference. And so I think it's important for people to recognize that. Now, Duncan, why don't you tell us what your thoughts were and experiences when you heard that you were recognized as a rising star?
Yeah, I had a little bit different experience than Mike, because they actually didn't tell me that I was being nominated. And for a company,
Surprise.
yeah, we're about 40 people here. And so I feel like, anybody that's worked for a smaller company, you kind of have a pulse on everything that's going on within the company, even if you have multiple offices and whatnot. And so it's honestly pretty hard to get anything past me, because I'm either aware or involved of whatever's going on. And so the fact that they ran it by me and got enough information from my team, which was newer at the time, to nominate me and to actually push it all the way through, and then not tell me until that award notice that Mike was mentioning. It was even more surprising at that point, because it was not only you've been nominated, but that you've actually been named one of the rising stars. And then really, honestly, to see the people and the acronyms after people's names, by way of license or credential that I was in company with, there's 20 or 25 of us that were named in 2024. And to see people like Mike, who have their PE, and all of these people who are in the architecture and engineering side, where they're actually, like you said, Randy, they are billable. They're actually contributing to the bottom line in a direct way. I've had to remind myself over the years where maybe I've hit a slump or really lacked purpose, or what I thought was lacking purpose, of remembering and reminding myself that I am having that impact. Although it's indirect on the bottom line, it's facilitating those relationships, it's increasing the brand awareness. And so I was thoroughly honored to be named a rising star, because I had admired the years before. Like Mike said, we also have gone to the Elevate conference for the last 4 or 5 years. And so I've always admired the people who have gotten up on stage, and I can see the difference they're making in the industry. And not only that, but in a relatively short amount of time, for people being 3 to 10 years in their career, and to make such a difference where they were named nationally with this amazing group of people, to then be one of those people. It was not only a cool reminder of kind of the validation for my role and what I've been able to hopefully do positively in the industry, but also to be kind of representing the other marketers and business development professionals that are doing something similar to me, and hopefully encouraging them in the next chapter. Because I was a one-man team 6 years ago when I started, and it was only at the beginning of 2024 that I even got one additional team members, and I ended up getting two, which was great. And then all of a sudden having a spot at the table to talk with leadership and to advocate for the marketing and BD of our firm. And so to see that go full circle, to be recognized among the likes of Mike and these other professionals that I look up to and really admire for their contributions to the industry, it was a special feeling.
That's awesome. I'm really excited to hear that, and I can only imagine what the feeling must be like. And so again, congratulations. And I really enjoyed meeting both of you at the Elevate conference down in Tampa. Thankfully, we dodged the hurricane, which came a week later, but it was still a phenomenal event. And again, I'm always encouraged when I see youth and when I see the next generation so involved in the design industry and really fired up to be that next group of leaders. And that's what both of you guys are. And you certainly, you both wear it well. So just, thank you guys both so much for being a part of that. Luke, I'm going to let you take away the next two questions that we have for these guys.
Yeah, and just full disclosure, I was very curious about your experience with the nomination process and knowing when you won. I think both of you know that I write the profiles for our Rising Stars winner. I'm also part of the selection process, so the process starts very early for me, and I know who the Rising Stars are. So to hear that experience from your perspective was really cool. Duncan, something that you said kind of drew me towards a recent article that Mike wrote that came out in the Zweig letter, talking about going from having imposter syndrome to being a rising star, right? And you talked about your experience with imposter syndrome, despite having some early career success. But can you talk about how you overcame that feeling of imposter syndrome, and kind of maybe what role this award played in that?
Yeah, I would love to. I love that question, because I think hopefully people reading quotes about this or listening to this episode would resonate as well. And I'll speak on behalf of Mike because I think he said it as well. But I think our leadership teams in our companies, it seems like we both have cultures that support people and encourage growth and professional development. And I can honestly say I wouldn't be sitting here being named a rising star, or even having the experience I've had over the last 6 years, without that support from our company. And so I think that they've encouraged me along the way to not be afraid to fail, and obviously fail within reason. But I think that there's been plenty of opportunities where maybe we've tried out a campaign, maybe we've gone and done, some client appreciation initiative that maybe didn't have the direct outcome that we wanted, but we still took something from it and we still found the silver lining. And so I say all that because I think I've been supported every step of the way, especially as somebody who's not a technical professional in this industry. And so I think that alone has helped me kind of overcome that imposter syndrome, because there's nothing like sitting in a meeting in a room full of people that are actually working on projects and actually the ones, putting their stamp on something or running it through a jurisdiction, and to be the only one or one of few people in the room that doesn't have any of that experience and has no idea what half the acronyms are that they're talking about, it's quite humbling. And so you really have to be honest with yourself and admit what you don't know. And then you also have to have the trust in the leaders around you and other industry mentors to be able to ask them, say, hey, I took notes, and my notes during that meeting were all the things that I have no idea what you were saying. And there was a lot of that at the beginning of my experience at Tamarack Grove, but luckily, because there's people who have patience and who were willing to work with me and kind of see me along the way as somebody who was going to advocate for them, who was going to go find more work and relationships for them, they saw the value in that. And so I think overcoming imposter syndrome, it doesn't happen overnight, but I can say that the more time you dedicate and the more excited and passionate you are about this industry, the quicker that you'll overcome that. And so I think it does happen if you give it time and if you ask the right questions to people that you trust.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think it goes into a kind of point that things like imposter syndrome might be a structural issue, right? I think everyone is naturally feels maybe a little unsure of themselves at times, but if a couple people in your firm are feeling that way, then there is the lack of support around. And I think things like Rising Stars go a long way to alleviating the kind of the symptoms of imposter syndrome. But I'm curious, Mike, what your take on it is. You're kind of a success story, right? There's a lot of people that enter the industry, they find something like you had with your taking the LSAT, and they find a good reason to leave and they don't come back. But you're a success story, right? You had that point where you were thinking about leaving and you challenged to leave, but then you ultimately stayed. So, can you kind of talk about your experience with that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I sometimes might call it a unsuccessful story because didn't score high enough on the didn't meet my mark on the LSAT that I wanted to leave the industry. But I like your spin on it, Luke. I'm going to start using that one. So yes, a year out of school, is it design that I want to do? Is it because you get hit with all of that? You're right. And I'm going to speak to the acronym comment Duncan makes. I think sometimes our industry likes to use acronyms just to keep people out. And I was doing some federal work early in my career, and the AEC industry likes acronyms. Anything in the federal world, multiply it by 10. And I would sit at these tables and I'd write down all these acronyms, and I was scared to ask. I'd go back to my desk, I'd be Googling things, trying to figure out all what these are. And it took a couple years to say, all right, I've been doing this for a year. I don't know this one yet. Can you just tell me? Time out. What's this acronym mean? What are we talking about? So it's crazy that even like a small thing like using an acronym can deter people from really welcoming them into our industry. So Duncan similarly experienced that. So glad you brought it up. So when did I really start to switch and um, decide I was happy here in the industry? So I started doing some of our federal work with a team here. Did that for about a year, 18 months. Wasn't 100% sure that's where I wanted to do. At the same time, I was taking that LSAT. Another opportunity kind of popped up in BHC. We do a lot of utility work, linear fiber optic utilities. There's small equipment shelters that are along these fiber optic routes, so it's small site design. And I was like, that'd be fun. So there's some travel involved when you're 23 years old. Traveling all the time sounds like more fun. So went and worked with a team doing this, and you were doing right-of-way research, land acquisition. So the design and engineering component was a lot smaller. But there was a lot more coordination with utilities and um, land acquisition agents and different permitting entities we had to do with this. Bigger clients, more expectations on driving home project management excellence. So kind of got a different experience, different taste of the industry. And then it was kind of funny. I came back and found myself working with our land development team. Back to where I started, not so much on the federal side, more on the local private land development. And that's when I really started to find my niche. And I think it was because I had some leaders in this business that were open to me being a young professional trying out different things. It's like, hey, you've got to be to a certain level billable because we got to pay your salary, but we're also willing to let you try some different things, whether that's working with a different project team or um, trying to learn new software. So pushing innovation, whether for the company or for yourself in your own career. Our leadership is super supportive of that. And that helped me find my right niche. And I like to think it's been been good for them too, but it's definitely been great for me and where my career's landed. And I'm hoping now, my job is to kind of pass that same experience on to the newer graduate engineers I work with and let them find their niche. And um, it's I'm stepping into some really good shoes of how people did that. So big shoes to fill from the leadership that got me to where I am.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that freedom from your leadership to try new things and develop and evolve. I'll brag on you a little bit. You're one of a small handful of rising stars that is also published in the magazine, in Civil and Structural Engineer magazine. So you have a lot of talents, and it seems like you've been given that space to evolve, which seems very important to that process of development. And I know, and I'm really glad that we all shared the same barrier of acronyms. I thought I was the only one. I have a little book that I was flipping through trying to find all the acronyms, and then every company has a specific one. But I feel like my job in the marketing space a lot has been to, like you said, take those acronyms, make them a lot less scary, and introduce new people into the industry. And for me, that's a huge marketing and business development goal for the industry. And when we were talking about earlier, it says Duncan, your team expanded, and you're to brag on you as well. You helped lead one of the most prestigious awards recipients for Zweig Group Awards. Tamarack Grove has won a million times for a lot of things. Most notably, the Trifecta Award winner, 2022 and 2023. You helped lead that campaign. How has your role evolved since those first days, right? When you just had a concept that you were trying to develop online?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the brag. And I always try to point it back to our team because I always say without the engineers, I don't have a job. Without them working on cool projects, I have nothing to promote and nothing to talk about. And so try to give them the credit, especially on the best firm. I'm one of 40 and there's a lot more of them than there are of me. So, you talk about the trifecta and really all three awards that go into that, the best firm, the hot firm, and at least one marketing award. Nothing is possible without the whole team coming together and being part of that. Best firm with the results, from the survey, hot firm just based off the growth of the work that they're doing. And then hopefully on the marketing side, I can promote something that other people care about as well. But yeah, my role has really developed in a way that I didn't see possible, and especially not in this amount of time. But I went from really being a coordinator of just social media, building a brand guideline, like all the things that would kind of seem standard, but we were still so new to the marketing side of our company that I really had to do a lot of that groundwork to get us to a good point to then kind of launch off of. And so after doing that for a couple years and really seeing the need for more business development versus the organic growth that our firm had found its success on for the better part of 15 years of our firm's history, we really need to take more of an offensive approach. Go out there, go meet new people, go build relationships. Knowing that our playground is kind of North America, we work across Canada and across the US. And so I could go have coffee meetings here in Boise, but I can also hop on Zoom with anybody in any state, and we have the potential to help them out, which I think is what keeps me coming back each day. And so, yeah, it was at the end of 2023 that we implemented kind of a new operating system and structure within our company. And I got offered a seat at the table to be part of the leadership team. And so I get to, along with about 6 or 7 of us, kind of represent each function of our company. And every Monday morning, we start the week by meeting, and we're all around the table, and we get to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. What are we doing that's working? What's not working? And what can we do better? And I think that that was a real pivotal part of my career, where knowing that I'm actually making a difference for the whole company and not just specific to the marketing or the BD efforts that we're doing, but knowing that I could really drive that growth that we were seeking, part of our 10-year vision, in alignment with our revamped mission, in alignment with the values that we have and that we, hire everybody according to. It's like, how can I help facilitate that? And so it's been cool to see that come over the last year and a half or so. And then to also be named a rising star within there was kind of a cherry on top to really validate that work that I had been able to put in, but also the voice that I had been given at the table. And then, like Mike said, now we're tasked with passing that on to the next generation. I think that is what excites me going forward.
Man, you guys are killing it. That's for sure. And I'm just listening. I would imagine that when the firm leadership listens to this episode, they're going to be beaming with pride at the way that you guys are representing not just yourselves, but representing the brand and representing this industry. I will say this, and I have a quick question I want to ask for both of you, and you can just give one. I mean, I know there's a lot of, we could go down many paths with this particular question, but what are some things, or one thing specifically, that a company leader can do to better support emerging talent like yourselves beyond just an award like the Rising Stars Award? And Mike, I'll let you go first and answer that question. Just give me like one thing that you think a company leader can do to better support emerging talent within their organization.
I think it's, build that authentic mentorship relationship. So and I say that because there's a great thing, a leader could say, yeah, I mentor our firm's young professionals, but really do it, spend time with them, break, down the barriers, because we're all scared to talk to the company president when we're 22 years old, whether it's a 20-person firm or a 1,000-person firm, they're scary. So you have to break through that level of intimidation. We're just people. I'm 30 years ahead of you in my career. Let me help you out. And I think, fundamentally, that's the number one thing business leaders can do, whether they're an engineer or not an engineer, but help that young talent navigate the industry. Because like we've kind of kept coming back to, there's a lot of things that are scary about our industry, but there's way more that's exciting. And sometimes you have to go through that first couple years and get through the scary to find the exciting. And a mentor that could help you navigate that is, I think paramount.
Yeah, I love that. And I always tell people that mentoring and mentorship is a two-way street, right? A lot of times a good mentor gets as much out of the interaction and relationship with their mentee as the mentee does. So keep that in mind. And certainly there's always benefit to making time out of your schedule to continue to cultivate and help grow that next generation of leadership within your organization. Duncan, what's your one thing?
Yeah, well, Mike couldn't have said that better. And so I'll just add on kind of the second component that he was alluding to is, I think once you have that mentor and a mentor who truly is invested, that you have trust with, and that is accessible, I think that helped me in the early days too, is just having somebody who is accessible. For me, that was Brian and Doug, our two company owners, knowing that I could always ask them questions. And so then I think the second part of that is just, what's the path forward? What's the professional development path for me? Like what does my future hold here? Because I think once I saw that and I saw, okay, I'm not just going to be the social media and website guy forever, which is two things that I still love, but I knew that I could do more than just that. Once I saw that there was something beyond those functions, and once I could get it to a point where it was kind of sustainable within itself, it's like, bring it on. What's next? What else can I do to contribute to the growth of the firm? And so I love that Mike said the mentorship. I think if you have somebody who you know that you can trust, you know is accessible and available for you, and that they can provide that, where do I go from here? I think that that's so valuable.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Well, you want to say something, Mike?
I was going to add something to that, and I'm happy you brought up mentorship too, because I think the best mentors are also the best advocates. Um, going to hit a topic that we kind of consider taboo in our industry for the longest time, but the newest generation doesn't, and that's talking about pay and asking for a raise. And one of the things, and this doesn't just apply to a raise, I always give people feedback. Know that if you ask for a raise or a promotion, there's a conversation about you and your performance in a room you're not invited to. So, have mentors that are also advocates, because those are the people, whether it's a raise, whether it's, going to the Elevate conference and the firm spending a couple $1,000s for you to be there. It's whether it's taking on a challenging project, when you're only 5 to 7 years into your career, there's somebody there that needs to advocate for you. And I think that those mentors often become the best advocates because they've got that authentic relationship, and they tend to know that person well and be well positioned to advocate for them. So, mentor and advocate.
Yeah. Before we land this plane, I do have one other question that I want to ask you both, and it's simply this. I think some of the young professionals listening to this, potentially people that are peers of yours, they may think about like mistakes or roadblocks that they typically encounter in this space. What are some common mistakes or roadblocks that young professionals in the AEC space encounter, and if you dealt with any of them, how did you navigate them in your own careers? And you don't have to list a whole bunch of mistakes or roadblocks, but Mike, you can maybe give one example or speak to one thing that you struggled with, and then Duncan, you can speak to one thing that you struggle with. If they're both the same, that's fine. But I think in sharing, I always say sharing is caring, but in sharing some of these roadblocks or struggles that you encounter, it will help free up somebody else that may be going through the same thing silently, and as we say, suffering in silence. And I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, I guess I'll start off with this. I'm a design professional. I'm a site design guy, land development guy. The you expect the standard of care in our industry to be perfect drawings when you enter it. It's not. Perfection is not a standard of care in our industry, and mistakes happen, and you may not realize it till you get an RFI, you get a call from the contractor, and it's scary. It's, oh crap, does this work? What do we need to do? How do we quickly assess this situation and advise on a contractor that I've got a schedule to keep? And our industry has liability, so there's always that potential and that cloud of a liability issue hanging over you. The number one thing I tell people is mistakes are not fatal, but don't keep them to yourself. When you're a professional engineer, if you make a mistake, you have an obligation to raise your hand and say, this happened, let's talk about it. So bring that to your firm leader. I remember one day I had a conversation with our company president, like, Kevin, how do you do it? If there's a liability issue we run into, it comes to you. And there's always, like, you can't get away from that. And he's like, you know what? That's not the number one thing I worry about. It's about people like you leaving. And I was like, really? And he's like, yes, I believe in what we do. I'm going to defend our work. But having good talent that looks out for the company, looks out for the project, is tenfold the stressor to me than liability. Of course, liability's there. So hearing that was really that moment for me of, okay, yes, we make mistakes, but we know how to clean them up. And I'm only 10 years in my career. I lean on the 20, 30, 40-year professionals when that stuff comes up, because they've been around the block a few more times and they've seen more, and that's experience is invaluable. So I think that's my advice is mistakes happen. They can be scary, but raise your hand and go to those mentors, go to those firm leaders with the experience because they're going to help you navigate it.
I love that. I love that. Duncan, what's yours?
Yeah, I would say for me, speaking more to the administrative side of all of these firms, whether you're in finance, HR, BD, marketing, it would be seeing the whole picture. I didn't know what I didn't know, especially at the beginning. Not only had I never worked in the industry, but I didn't really know how a company runs as a whole. And so I I think I operated kind of in a silo for the first little while before I really understood how the finances play into what we're doing as a company and how marketing is a big part of human resources and recruiting and retention. And so, really, that encouragement to look at the whole picture for every decision you make. If it's a marketing campaign, if it's something that you're doing to show appreciation to your clients, or even if it is conference involvement, whatever you're doing as an initiative or as a task within the firm, how does it impact the bigger picture, or how can we get other people involved too? Because I think knowledge is power. Like you said, Randy, I think it's so important when minds can come together. And so go talk to the technical people if you're not one. Go talk to HR and see how you can help with a recruiting campaign. And I think we're all better when we can see the whole picture. So that would be my encouragement from experience of not seeing kind of what it takes to run the company, and then being on the other side now and really seeing how that cohesion can foster the success.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are like preaching to the choir right now. I mean, there's so much that you shared. I mean, specifically, Mike, for to elaborate on what you just shared, it's to the point, and I know like Chad Kleinens and Mark Zweig and so many other folks have said it over and over again. If you take care of your people will take care of the client, right? And so what you described, Mike, is a perfect example of that. And Duncan, you are so right about just the whole thing of going around and learning the whole industry and not feeling like, because sometimes I think when individuals, even those that are graduating from college, and let's say they already have an engineering degree, doesn't mean they know everything about the industry. And so sometimes gaining insight and an understanding of an industry is like emptying the ocean with a teaspoon. It seems like you will never be able to get there. And I remember Mark Zweig telling me right when I started at Zweig White, what was at the time Zweig White and Associates, he said, listen, it's going to take you 2 to 3 years to really learn this industry, the vernacular, the language, just the nuance of what the design industry represents. But I remember him telling me very distinctly, but I've never worked in an industry like this, and I will never leave this industry. And 46 years later, he's still in this space operating at a high level. And so, I mean, that speaks volumes for what this industry is like. And so to echo both of your sentiments, I would encourage any young person, any young design professional listening to this is just take your time. You're gonna make some mistakes, and just embrace each moment that you come to and use it as a learning tool to continue to get better. And certainly, if you're not in a shop, right? And I'm using shop just to describe any type of design firm that's really edifying you and helping you to grow. And if you're not experiencing a lot of the same things that Mike is describing and that Duncan are describing, you may be in the wrong place. And I'm not telling you to leave your firm, but trust me when I say this, every design firm out there is always looking for opportunistic hires, people that they can bring into the fold, because there's just so much work out there. And so I really want to encourage you, don't say, oh, well, one day it will get better. Find a better shop to be in where you can really grow as an individual as well as a teammate, because it will pay off in the long run, and you'll get to start experiencing some of the things just like what Mike and Duncan have discussed and talked about over this past hour.
One thing I want to add to that, Randy, because I love that you said that, is don't be afraid to expand your circle of mentors. Sometimes we get into the industry and your mentor becomes your supervisor, or somebody that they may be 3 or 4 or 5 years older than you. You may not follow the same career path as your supervisor and that first mentor you meet in the industry. Not
Yeah.
saying they're a bad mentor, but start finding those new mentors. I know, when I'm now, supervising staff, managing projects, submitting proposals, interviewing for work, I'm leaning on mentorship, not from those original mentors that were heavily technical and helped me develop that skill set. I'm leaning on the Duncans. I'm leaning on our HR directors and team of our company and world, because they're the ones that are giving me some good feedback from a totally different perspective. And as you evolve in your career, you got to find new mentors that help you expand your perspective and not get caught in some echo chamber.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Listen, you guys have been supremely patient with us, and we really, both Luke and I, really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with both of you amazing gentlemen today. Where can people connect with you or follow your work if they want to reach out? And Duncan, I'll let you go first this time.
Yeah, as the marketing guy, hopefully can point you guys in the right direction. But connect with me personally, Duncan H. Robertson on LinkedIn. Would love to connect. And like Mike just said, I love connecting with people and actually having those conversations. So if I can be a mentor or point you to one, I love being a connector of people too. That's a personal passion that I have. And then to follow along with our company, we're Tamarack Grove Engineering. We're headquartered in Boise, Idaho, and we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So would love a follow, would love some interaction with our content. And if you are one of those people that is looking for a change, or maybe know somebody who is, like Randy said, we truly want what's best for people. And so would happy to have those conversations too, if you fit that mold.
Yeah. How about you, Mike?
Great. Thanks for having Duncan go first, because he prepped the message for me. So name is Mike Makris. I go by Mike, but if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'm Michael Makris, Makris. So give me a follow, send me a message. That's a business channel that I routinely monitor, and will absolutely get back to you. The other place is BHC Engineering and Surveying. We go by BHC, but our website is as an igloo, bhc.com. Check us out. We're BHC on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. Great places to connect. We've got a superb marketing team that puts some great content out there. So interact with myself or our business. Happy to have conversations with anyone looking to grow in this industry. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's really great. I appreciate you guys doing that. And we'll, just in case somebody is listening to this, you're out running, you're walking the dog, you're washing dishes, you're driving, okay? Don't worry about it. I will put all of this information in the show notes. We'll make sure that you have a means and a way to get in contact with both Mike and Duncan, and of course Luke, as well as myself. So all that information will be in the show notes at zweigroup.com. And just click on the podcast section and you'll find all that information right there for you. Listen, Mike Makris, Duncan Robertson, I want to thank you guys both so very much for joining Luke and I today on the Zweig Podcast. We appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you. Appreciate all
you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I want to share a commercial for everyone listening. Okay. If you listen to this and you're like, man, I want to get involved with the Rising Stars Award program. I've got a Rising Star in my office. I want you to listen to this. Every firm has them. Those bright, ambitious young professionals who are shaping the future of the design industry. It's time to give them the recognition they deserve. Zweig Group's Rising Star Award celebrates the next generation of leaders, those pushing boundaries, driving innovation, and making an impact. Know someone who fits the bill? Nominate them today, and let's shine a spotlight on the best and brightest in the industry. Visit zweiggroup.com and just search for Rising Stars Award, and you could submit your nomination. But hurry, the deadline is actually coming up fast at the time of us recording this particular podcast episode. But even if it's after the fact, just bookmark that page and come around next year, right after the beginning of the year, and you could nominate someone at that point in time. It's definitely time for you to start recognizing, celebrate, elevate, and nominate your rising stars today. Listen, we appreciate everybody taking time out to join us on this Zweig Podcast. We really appreciate the time and effort that you put into listening to this. to sharing it with friends. Remember, we can be found on every major podcasting platform, including YouTube. And of course, if you get the chance and this podcast really speaks to you, we would appreciate you rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn. I'm also here with my colleague, Luke Carothers. We really appreciate you guys listening to this episode. We will be back soon with another new episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. See you soon. Peace.